When did you stop trusting your teacher? I used to think my favorite teacher saved my life. Turns out, he almost ruined it. You ever look back at someone who once seemed like a hero and realize they were actually the villain? Yeah, that's how it felt for me with Mr. Dawson, the teacher everyone adored, the one who made you feel like school wasn't just a grind but a place where you actually mattered. I was 17 then. Quiet, painfully shy, the kind of girl teachers liked because I never caused trouble. I lived in my own little bubble of books and coffee-stained notebooks. My friends called me the ghost because half the time people forgot I was even in the room. I didn't mind it. I figured being invisible was safer than being noticed. Then Mr. Dawson showed up. He was the new English teacher that year, mid-30s maybe, charming, the type who wore rolled-up sleeves and always smelled faintly of coffee and chalk dust. He didn't act like a regular teacher. He'd joke around, play indie songs during class, and talk to us like we were equals instead of dumb teenagers. Everyone loved him, and I mean everyone. He had this way of making you feel seen, like genuinely seen. He'd look right at you when you spoke, nod like your opinion mattered. That's all it took to hook a quiet girl like me. One afternoon, he stopped me after class, said he'd read my essay, and wanted to talk about it. My first instinct was panic. I thought I'd done something wrong, but instead he smiled and said, "Emily, this is beautiful. You write with emotion. Most adults can't even fake." No teacher had ever said anything like that to me. I remember blushing so hard I couldn't even look him in the eye. He told me I had a writer's soul, and that if I kept at it, I could do something real with it someday. That sentence played on loop in my head for weeks. From then on, I worked twice as hard in his class, stayed after school to get feedback. He'd always be patient, always encouraging. Sometimes he'd ask about my family, my hobbies, my future, things most teachers didn't care about. I told myself he was just a good teacher, maybe the best one I'd ever had. But even good things can feel too good. He started noticing little details. The bracelets I wore, the way I tied my hair, even the pens I liked using. He'd say, "You're observant. That's why your writing feels alive." It sounded like praise, but sometimes it felt a little too personal, like he was studying me, not teaching me. Still, I brushed it off. I was 17. He was an adult who saw potential in me. What could be wrong with that? He'd say things like, "You remind me of myself when I was your age," or "You're different from the other students." And when you're that age, desperate to stand out, those words hit deep. He made me feel like being quiet and sensitive wasn't a flaw, that it was something special. So, I started trusting him, more than my parents, more than my friends. One day after class, he handed me a book, an old, worn-out copy of The Catcher in the Rye. Inside the cover, he'd written, "For Emily, because you see the world differently. Don't let anyone dim that." I swear, I felt like crying right there. No one had ever believed in me like that. That night, I sat on my bed, reading that note over and over. My mom knocked on my door and asked what had me smiling. I told her it was just a school thing. She wouldn't get it. The next morning, when I got to school, Mr. Dawson smiled at me from across the hall, just a small nod, like we shared a secret, and I liked it, that feeling of being chosen. That's how it starts, right? When someone makes you feel like you're their favorite person in the world, but it's not love, not mentorship. It's something else you can't name yet. Back then, I didn't question it. I told myself he was just a kind teacher who saw potential in me. But looking back now, every compliment, every year special, every extra minute he spent making me feel seen, it wasn't kindness, it was a test. A slow, quiet test to see how far he could go. If I could go back and talk to that version of myself, the one smiling down at that book in her lap, I'd say this: "He's not impressed by your writing, Emily. He's impressed by how easy it is to make you trust him." Because that's the thing about people like Mr. Dawson, they don't take your trust all at once. They earn it, inch by inch, until you hand it over like a gift. And by the time you realize what they're doing, it's already too late. Back then, I thought he just believed in me. Now I realize he was testing how far that belief could go. It started small, so small that I almost laughed it off. One night, I got a text, an unknown number that said, "You're up late, writer girl." I froze for a second before realizing it was Mr. Dawson. He must have gotten my number from the class contact sheet. My heart jumped a little. It wasn't fear, not yet. More like nervous excitement. I texted back, "Just finishing your essay assignment." He replied with a winking emoji. "Knew it. You're my most dedicated student." I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want people to think it was weird, but I remember reading that message over and over, my stomach twisting with something that wasn't pride anymore, something I couldn't name. Over the next week, the messages kept coming. At first, it was about class. "Your analysis today was sharp. Loved your phrasing in that paragraph." But then it turned personal. "You've got an old soul, Emily. You get me in a way most adults don't." You get me. A teacher, saying that to a student. At 17, though, I didn't see manipulation. I saw attention, approval. I told myself, he's just friendly. He's just proud of me. Then came the hand. He was handing me my essay after class, and his fingers brushed mine. I thought it was an accident, but it happened again the next week. And the next, that extra second, that pause that made my heart pound, even though it shouldn't have. He'd smile afterward like nothing happened, and when I'd leave the room, he'd say softly, "Don't stay up too late, writer girl." My best friend Lily started teasing me. You and Mr. Dawson have like major main character energy. She laughed, but when she said it, I felt a pang of guilt. I told her to shut up, but inside, I didn't hate the attention. That's what makes it dangerous. You want to believe it's innocent because the truth feels dirtier than you can handle. Then one afternoon, I walked into class early. Mr. Dawson was at his desk, phone in hand. He looked up suddenly, startled, and set his phone face down. I caught a glimpse, just for a second, my name on the screen. He said, "Oh, just grading notifications." But my gut twisted. Why would my name be on his phone outside of school hours? Later that night, he texted, "You're really coming out of your shell lately. I'm proud of you." I should have told someone, but how do you explain that the person who's supposed to protect you is making your skin crawl in the most confusing way possible? Then something else happened. The first real red flag I couldn't ignore. We were working on a group project. I told him I couldn't stay after school that day because I had to help my mom at home. His face shifted, just slightly, that smile, fading into something cold. He said, "You're not really committed, are you?" I apologized. Of course. I always did. And then the next day, he ignored me completely. No smiles, no feedback, nothing. The silence burned. It was like being banished by someone you didn't even realize had that much power over you. When I stayed after class later that week to ask if I'd done something wrong, he sighed dramatically and said, "You're too sensitive, Emily. You read too much into everything. That's what makes you a good writer. But it's exhausting." My stomach dropped. I felt stupid, embarrassed, and desperate to get back in his good graces. That's when I started to understand. He wasn't just teaching me English. He was teaching me control. By the end of that semester, I wasn't sure if I was still learning from him or surviving him. And the worst part? I didn't tell anyone. Not because I trusted him, but because I was afraid no one else would. The night everything changed was supposed to be ordinary. Mr. Dawson had asked me to stay after school to help organize writing competition entries. He said he trusted only me to handle it because I was mature and responsible. Those words always disarmed me. They sounded like compliments until they became traps. When I showed up, the halls were empty. His classroom door was closed, blinds half drawn. Inside, his desk lamp cast this eerie yellow glow over piles of papers. He smiled when I walked in. "You're early, always the overachiever." I laughed awkwardly, but something felt wrong. His voice was softer, slower. He offered me a soda, said it was from the teacher's lounge. I took it, not realizing my hands were trembling. For the first 15 minutes, everything was normal. We sorted essays, stapled pages, joked about typos, but then the conversation drifted, away from writing, away from school. He said, "You ever feel like no one really sees you, Emily? Like everyone just expects you to be perfect?" I froze. He wasn't talking like a teacher anymore. He was talking like someone lonely, someone looking for comfort. I muttered something like, "I guess," but he leaned closer, too close. His voice dropped to a whisper. "You don't have to pretend with me." My throat went dry. I stood up quickly, saying I needed to get going. He laughed, that calm, knowing laugh, and said, "Relax. I just meant you're special. You don't have to act scared of me." Scared. That word hung in the air, because that was exactly what I was. I grabbed my bag and mumbled something about homework. As I left, I heard him say softly, "Don't forget, you owe me for all the extra time I've spent helping you." Owe we him? For what? That night, I couldn't sleep. Every message he'd ever sent replayed in my mind. Every compliment felt different now, heavier, darker. And then, curiosity got the better of me. I logged onto the shared class folder to upload my essay draft, but I saw another open session. Someone else was logged in, Mr. Dawson's name. The file he was looking at? My private journal assignment? The one labeled Personal Reflection, not for review. He wasn't supposed to have access to that. I clicked open the file history, and my stomach twisted. He'd downloaded it 3 times. My heart pounded as I scrolled through my own words, the ones I wrote about my loneliness, my self-doubt, the parts of me I never wanted anyone to read. Then my screen pinged, an email from Mr. Dawson. "Beautiful writing, as always. You shouldn't hide parts of yourself from me. I already know you better than anyone." That was the moment everything shattered. It wasn't admiration. It wasn't mentorship. It was surveillance, control, obsession. I went to school the next day determined to say something, to confront him, but he beat me to it. During class, he acted perfectly normal, smiling, charming. Then, when the bell rang, he said loudly, "Emily, can you stay a moment? We need to talk about your attitude lately." My classmates glanced back curiously. My face burned. I stayed behind, heart racing. He shut the door and said coldly, "You've been distant. People are talking. You don't want rumors, do you?" Rumors. About me. It hit me like a punch. He was flipping the script, making me the problem, the unstable one. He lowered his voice. "If you start telling stories about me, no one will believe you. You know that, right?" I remember every word, every pause, the way he looked at me, not like a teacher, but like someone daring me to fight back. I left that room shaking so hard I could barely breathe. By the end of the week, Whispers started spreading. Someone said I had a crush on him. Someone else said I made things awkward. I knew exactly where it came from. He had taken everything, my reputation, my trust, my safety, and twisted it until I didn't recognize myself anymore. That's when I realized something terrifying. He didn't just want control over my grades, he wanted control over me. And that was the day I stopped feeling like a student and started feeling like prey. The next few days felt like walking through fog. Everyone smiled at me, but I could feel the whispers underneath. Sharp, cutting, poisonous. Someone even taped a note to my locker that said, "Teacher's pet," with a little heart drawn next to it. I tore it down before anyone saw me cry. That's how manipulation works. You start doubting your own truth. You start wondering if maybe you are overreacting. But every time I tried to convince myself it wasn't that bad, I remembered the email, the tone, the way he looked at me when no one else was around. So I decided to fight back. Quietly, I started documenting everything. Every message, every odd comment, every time he touched my shoulder, by accident. I took screenshots, printed them, hid copies in my locker and at home. I even recorded one of our private talks with my phone tucked under my sleeve. And what he said in that recording still makes my blood run cold. He said, "You don't get it, Emily. I'm not like those other men. I actually see you. You'll thank me someday when you're not so naive." Naive. That word snapped something in me. I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. He'd probably done this before, maybe with other girls who didn't know how to fight back. So I decided to find out. I created a fake Instagram account, a burner profile pretending to be a new transfer student. I followed him, liked a few of his posts, commented once with, "Can't wait for senior year English." Within a day, he DM'd me. "Welcome. You look like someone who'll love my class. I can help you get ahead if you're serious about writing." There it was, proof, the same pattern. But I wasn't done. I showed the messages to my friend Claire, one of the only people who hadn't joined in the gossip. She looked horrified. "Emily, you need to take this to the counselor." I hesitated. They won't believe me. He's everyone's favorite teacher. She leaned forward and said, "Then let's make them believe you." We planned it carefully. We gathered everything. The screenshots, the audio, the burner DMs. Claire suggested we loop in another student, Jenna, who used to tutor with him after hours but quit suddenly. When we told her what we found, she went pale. He used to text me too. I thought I was the only one. That was it, the final crack in his armor. The next day, I requested a private meeting with the principal. My hands were shaking so bad I thought I'd drop my phone. But when I hit play on the recording and Mr. Dawson's voice filled the office, I saw the principal's face change. He didn't say a word at first, just listened. Then he said quietly, "Emily, I need you to leave this room and wait outside. We'll handle this." I waited in the hallway for what felt like an eternity. Every second, I expected to see Dawson storm out, red-faced and furious. But he didn't. Instead, the next morning, an announcement came over the PA system. "Mr. Dawson will be on indefinite leave. Substitute teachers will handle English classes." My stomach dropped. He was gone. But the relief didn't come right away, because that night I got one last email from an address I didn't recognize. No subject line, no greeting, just 3 words. "You ruined me." I stared at the screen until my hands went numb. I wanted to feel triumphant, to feel safe, but all I felt was the echo of fear, because if he could send that, it meant he still knew where to find me. And something deep inside me whispered, "This isn't over yet." After that email, sleep became impossible. Every creak of my apartment sounded like footsteps. Every notification on my phone made my heart lurch. I blocked the address, changed my passwords, even deleted my social media. But paranoia doesn't vanish when you hit delete. It seeps into everything. A week passed before I convinced myself to go outside again. It was early morning, crisp air, campus quiet. I walked to the coffee shop across from the university where I was now studying education. Ironic, right? Training to become the kind of teacher I should have had. But when I pushed open the door, my stomach turned to ice. Mr. Dawson was there, sitting by the window, same lazy smirk, same eyes that used to make me feel like I mattered, only now they looked hollow, dangerous. He noticed me instantly, and the way his face lit up, it wasn't surprise, it was intent, like he'd been waiting. I froze, gripping my cup so tight my fingers went white. He stood up slowly, walked over, and said, "Emily, wow, you look good. College suits you." I wanted to run, but some part of me refused to give him that power again, so I said, steady but low, "You shouldn't talk to me." He tilted his head, almost amused. "You think you won, huh? You cost me my job, my reputation, and for what? Some attention you wanted?" Those words hit like a slap. Classic abuser logic, twist the story, make me doubt myself. But not this time. I looked him right in the eye and said, "You didn't ruin my life, Mr. Dawson. You just showed me who you really were." He chuckled darkly. "You still think you're the hero in this story?" I leaned in and whispered, "No, but I'm the one who lived through it. You didn't ruin me either." He blinked, thrown off by my calm. That's when a voice cut through the air behind me. "Is there a problem here?" It was Claire, my friend. She worked part-time at the cafe. She'd seen him. And she wasn't alone. Another barista had already pulled out her phone, recording. Mr. Dawson looked around, realizing the tables had turned. His smirk faltered. He muttered, "You think anyone cares about your sob story?" I took a step closer. They didn't before, but they do now. He froze. Because at that moment, a man in plain clothes stepped forward from the corner. A detective. I hadn't told anyone this, but after his last email, I'd filed a harassment report. The officer had been keeping an eye near my usual spots. Dawson's face drained of color as the detective said, "Mr. Dawson, we need to have a conversation." He tried to backpedal, sputtering about coincidences, lies, vindictive students, but it didn't matter anymore. As they led him out, I stood there shaking, not from fear, but from release. Claire put a hand on my shoulder and whispered, "It's over." I looked out the cafe window, watching his figure disappear down the street. For years, I'd replayed his words in my head, wondering what I could have done differently, but now I finally understood. The only mistake I made was believing a monster could be a mentor. And for the first time since high school, I breathed freely. If you're still here, you already know, like, subscribe, and stay tuned. More stories, more drama, more real talk coming up next.